right, good morning. Welcome to our first Capitol Confidential with our local rep and newly elected Democratic caucus chair, Gene Wu. Thank you all for being here. We're fixing to do this pretty much every Saturday, 10 o'clock for about 30 minutes with our representatives, folks that I think you'll find interesting to give us an update on what we're doing as Democrats, particularly as Harris County Democrats up here at the Capitol all the way through, because obviously there's a lot of things that we need to focus on as Democrats. There's things that we as a local party have priorities. I'll share with you, we have 4 priorities bills that we're going to be pushing and hopefully having some success with. One of them is increasing the minimum wage. That's going to be carried by Representative Christina Morales. And it's not just increasing the minimum wage, but it's also tying it to the cost of living. The second thing we're going to do is focus on actually refunding the public schools from the massive amounts that have been stripped by Abbott and the Republicans over the past 14 years. We also understand the need to actually fund Medicare for all, or because at this point, our taxpayers in Harris County through our hospital district and really the county are paying for treatment of folks that should be paid for with federal money already allocated that Texas is refusing to take. And then finally, we're getting behind the bill co-sponsored by Senator Alvarado to ensure that women in miscarriage, medical distress are not just allowed to die. With that, I'd like to ask Representative Gene Wu to explain how in the world did you end up becoming the Democratic caucus chair of this session?
Well, if anybody actually knows, please let me know, because I didn't really imagine myself in this position. But truthfully, basically what we've talked about since the last election, since the 24 election, and since all the stuff that's happened, I think that was what was running through my mind. And what I really want to see is I feel the frustration that Democrats feel. I feel the frustration that the people out there feel. And it's just sort of like, we don't talk about the things that we need to talk about. We don't fight for the things we want to fight. Instead, all we do is chase after the Republicans and try to like protect against whatever dumbass thing that they're doing this week, right? And instead, what I think needs to happen is Democrats across the nation and even in Texas need to go back to the things that Democrats have always talked about. And that's stuff like raising the minimum wage, making sure that education is the best education in the world, and just protecting our everyday lives, dealing with things like food costs, like insurance costs, like housing costs, like all those things that Democrats have fought for like as long as there have been Democrats, right? And we want to go back to that, and that's kind of like why I ran, because I want to put our direction back in go back in that direction.
Well, Gene, and by the way, for those all that are logging on, I see there's a bunch more logging on. We have a chat. You can have an opportunity for questions. Probably not too many today, but if you have them, go ahead and start putting them in. With that, let me ask you this. I mean, Democratic caucus chair, in reality, what does that mean you're doing when you have all these representatives out there from across the state and so many of our great Harris County folks? What do you actually do?
Well, let me before that even say, and Mike, I mean, I was really again want to commend you for really putting this on. I think this is an incredible thing to do, and something that's very badly needed and people have asked for a long time. And this is gonna be great because I hear the complaints from Democrats of like, hey, we don't ever know what's going on. You guys don't ever do anything. And like we do a lot of stuff, we're just not really good about explaining it. And so I really appreciate you putting on and having this format for us to explain to other Democrats, hey, these are all the things we've been doing. We've been fighting like hell on all these things. Sometimes you don't hear about it, but we want you to hear about it more. So thank you so much. And the best way to think of me is I'm the minority leader. I'm the opposition leader in the Texas legislature now, in the Texas House. So Dan Patrick has an iron grip over the Senate. The House is one of the last places where Democrats have the ability to participate and to represent their districts, and that's what we're going to do, and that's what we've been fighting for. And throughout these last couple of weeks, if you heard stuff about the speaker's race, about the fight over the rules, that's what it was about. It was about Democrats making decisions and making smart choices to even in a cycle, even in a political cycle where we, instead of gaining 5 seats, we lost 2, right? Even in that context, Democrats came out okay. right?
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, we're up at opening session, and two of our great staffers, our executive director, Nicole Peterson, and Baird Campbell, our communications manager, who's running this whole operation. We're up there visiting with and making sure that we're on top of to share with all the folks in Harris County.
Yeah.
But, opening day, there were hundreds of people with red shirts saying no Democratic chairs.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a concerted effort to push through Abbott's designated chair, Cook. It didn't
Yeah.
happen. What did the Democrats do to make that not happen? And
Yeah.
what's that going to mean for this session?
So it wasn't just Abbott. It was actually Abbott, Paxton, and Patrick, and more so, and actually probably Patrick more so than
Do we
anyone
call
else.
them the triumvirate, the triple, what do we call them?
I don't know. No, we just call them the Patrick camp. I mean, really, among us, we just call it the Patrick camp because we don't say the Republicans because the Republicans are with us, right? The Republicans, the actual Republicans who say, let's get crap done, right? Let's fix stuff. We're tired of this. Like these political games are fun and they're interesting for elections, but like our people hurt too. There's Republicans out there who said, like, dude, we live in a rural community. We have no water. Our schools are closing and people can't afford to live here anymore, even in the rural areas. So what's going on? And the people who are on the Cook side, and I don't even say Cook because it's not him that we're running against, that we're fighting against, right?
We're going to have to do something better than the Patrick camp. That's just too benign.
Well, no, I mean, but just for us to talk about it internally, right? Because that's really who's calling the shots over there. And basically anything that happens in that side, like basically Patrick has to approve it, right? And so like after a while, like why even bother having two chambers? Why not just let the Senate do everything?
Right.
If the House is just going to be subservient to the Senate and our voices don't matter, why even have us? And that's basically what they tried to do, and that's what they tried to do in the rules. And this is why. So you want to hear, the final irony of this? All those red shirts came in as no Democratic chairs, right? And this was a part of their campaign. And guess what? The people on the floor who were screaming the loudest for no Democratic chairs, guess what they did? They voted not to ban Democratic chairs. Okay?
So how's that going to work out? I mean, what's the expectation now?
So look, what happened on Thursday when we did the rules was we rearranged the House, right? And so
by the way, let me pause. This is exactly what we're looking to hear on these Saturdays. And one of the things I want to make sure we don't forget is Representative Thompson and how y'all got this done. But tell us what happened Thursday, right, hot off the press.
So here's the basic of it. Democrats knew that this like no Dem chairs rule was coming down, right? And that it was going to happen no matter what. And they said, like, look, if you're going to shove this down our throats, then we should get something for it, right? Because we're part of the coalition that brought you to power, and we are asking for just some respect, right? But not a whole lot. We didn't ask for
just a little bit, right?
Just a little bit, just a modicum of respect, and that's what they did. And then, in fact, this the irony was, this was what the Patrick camp, the Cook camp, was offering as well. Right. And they're mad about it now. It was like, wait, you took their deal, but not our deal. Like, yeah, well, because you suck. Right.
Yeah, you beat me to the punch.
Right.
So what's the deal? What do you get?
So look, they got rid of Democratic chairs for the standing committees. There's going to be just a number of standing committees, but within those standing committees, what we did was in the past, we had a lot of I don't know, people get mad when I say this, but we had a lot of garbage committees, like rules, like resolutions. It's just like passing stuff, honoring people's 100th birthdays and stuff, right? It's just like some place to put a chairman. Like we don't, the last time they made Ryan Guillen, the guy who flipped from a D to R, one of the most incompetent members that we've ever had in the body, and they gave him chair.
My question. I want to ask who's been the most annoying Republican so far this legislature. So I'm going to put a bookmark on that, but keep going.
And basically they gave him resolutions because that's the place where he can do the least amount of harm, right? And so like those kind of committees, we say, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. We're just going to roll them into the standing committees, and we're going to have subcommittees within the standing committees. And so that's what we're going to do. So there will be no Democratic chairs in the standing committees, but there's no rules against it in the subcommittees, right? And in the select committees. And so again, we go back to this idea that, guys, if we're talking about running the government like a business, if we were a business, why would we say half of our employees don't have to work? While we say half of our employees, we're not going to listen to them. We're not going to give them any roles. It's just insane. Why would you do that? So what we're saying basically here, and what we're trying to say in the House as a group, the people who voted for this, what we're trying to say is, let's get to work. Let's actually get things done. Because sometimes a Democrat may be the best person to chair a committee that deals with women's health issues, right? A Democrat may be the best option for this or that, and maybe a Republican is the best person for this or that. And what we're trying to say is, look, let's stop worrying about whether this helps people win elections or not. And let's worry about, let's fix the problems for the state. These are serious problems that affect everyday people, and they're destroying our lives, right? Every single day, I mean, you look around the world, you see people just barely making it, and you see a lot of people not making it. You see more and more people sliding into homelessness. Housing costs are through the roof, and we passed all these tax breaks for landlords last time. With me being one of the few people voting against it, right? We passed all these tax breaks for landlords. Do you see rent coming down? You see any rent
Not
coming
too
down?
much, not in Houston, that's for sure.
Not in Houston. I haven't heard a damn person say my rent has been decreased, right? Maybe it hasn't gone up more, but sure as hell hasn't decreased. And that was the whole point. They were promised as, oh, rent will decrease. Landlords will pass it on. They sure as hell didn't.
No, they got
Right?
richer.
They never do.
They
right?
never do.
Why would
There's
they
always
give
lots
you
of
money
promises,
they didn't
that's for
have to
sure.
give you? So as housing prices get more expensive, right? And we're seeing that. And you see all these massive deportations are happening. Guess who's building those houses? Guess who's building the new houses? Guess who's fixing up the old ones? It ain't us. It ain't like middle class white America, right? It's the poor immigrant laborers who are here either with papers or without. And guess what? They're not coming to work, right? They're not coming to work. They're not sending their kids to school. They're not going to church. They're not doing anything. And we're going to see a massive spike in home prices, food prices, and all other prices.
Notwithstanding all the promises otherwise.
What?
Notwithstanding all the promises otherwise. Let me ask you about something
Yeah.
kind of more interesting from my perspective. And I think having seen kind of in action a couple of years and over several years, this session has a very interesting tone. And you had obviously some jockeying, and not every Democrat in the House was on board, but remarkable unity. And I understand Representative Symphornia Thompson had a lot to do with that, kind of mechanically keeping everybody on the same page to kind of block the Patrick. And I really am going to have to come up with something better than the Patrick team.
Okay, you do it. You come up with it.
We'll figure out something maybe by the end of the webinar. But how did that work mechanically? I mean, how did everybody stick together, and how did our folks from Harris County, yourself, Representative Thompson, how did it actually happen?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, Miss T, and for those of you who don't know, Miss Symphornia Thompson, a Houston rep, by the way, is is the longest serving Democrat for one. There is only one person in the legislature who has served in the body longer, and that is Tom Craddock, who has one session on her, which is why he also won't retire, because if he retires, then Miss T becomes the longest serving. So they're both in this kind of race where neither will retire. And we don't want Miss T to retire because she's doing a fantastic job. And look, a lot of people listen to her, a lot of people follow her. I sure as hell listen to her. Because she just has a wealth of experience, and I don't know how many speaker fights this has been for her, and she's the whole time everyone's like running around with their hair on fire, like and Miss T's just sitting there going, tell me what's going on, right? And she's like, well, I've been down this road many times, y'all relax, right? And so look, I mean, the speaker's fight was tough for Democrats. Because, in the past, well, no, I'm saying it was both tough and it was actually easy at the same time. It was tough especially older members, or for longer serving members, because we've been in these kind of fights many times before. And we kind of have this rule of like, hey, the guy who files like 40 days ahead is usually not the speaker, right? So that's like a long-standing like mantra in the legislature, is like it's always somebody who pops up at the end, right? But the thing is, in the past, the speaker fights, like whether it was Joe Strauss, whether it was Bonin, whether it was Phelan, it was always like a contest between basically the same like center right white guy, right?
Okay.
It's, I mean,
So you
like,
had Tweedledee or Tweedledum. By the way, we got
yeah,
some
so it's like
suggestions.
mostly just like differences in personality, and that's about it. And everybody says I'm going to be fair, and everybody says I'm going to be nice. And whether they do that or not is just a matter of trust. But for the first time, the choices were very clear, right? You had a David Cook who basically says Democrats won't be allowed to pass any bills, will have no role in the process, and we're going to basically stomp on you. But we're going to be nice about it when we stomp on you, right?
We'll smile when we do it.
Yeah, we'll be very professional when we crush your face, right? Um, and on the other side, like we have Burroughs, whose core constituency are the anti-voucher Republicans and the rural Republicans and the people who are just basically like the people who were primaried by Governor Abbott, right? People who in the past worked hand in hand with Democrats to get big stuff done because they understand that like our ultimate job is not to win re-election. Our ultimate job is to fix things for the people, right? And he says like, look, I just want to fix things. And if we can put some of the political stuff aside, like we'll try to keep some of the bad stuff out of your hair, and if you keep some of the bad stuff out of our hair, let's just get together and work on the stuff in the middle.
So
Right?
let me pause you here. By the way, we've got 3 suggestions: the Patrick Cabal, Patrick Fascists, Patrick Bastards, and then I just thought of one. How about the Patrick Patsies?
Patrick Patsy.
We'll try and do a poll maybe next time on that.
I don't know. You guys pull that out and tell me what works.
All right. So hey, let me
I
ask you
like
this. You
all of
mentioned
those.
something
Those are
that's
actually nice.
a very important topic, especially to the educators in our community with HISD, the vouchers. So what does this all mean for vouchers now that at least Cook and the Patrick Patsies or the Patrick Fascists or the Patrick Cabal aren't running the show? What does that mean for vouchers that we've won this battle, or at least joined together as Democrats on this battle in the legislature to prevent the Patrick Cabal or Patsies from taking over?
Yeah. Okay. The problem with Patsy's is I like it, but it ages us really badly because it basically
I got 4 kids that do that all the time. So
we're old. We're both old. We don't need to remind people how old we are. So look, if it was the Patrick Patsy's or whatever, we would be looking at minimum a much larger voucher bill. Like I mean, right now the House and the Senate has basically only budgeted about $1 billion, which is still an insane amount of money to give to the wealthy from the pockets of the poor, right? But it's still a lot better than if it was $4 or $7 billion, which it very easily could have been. Even in states like Arizona and New Mexico where they did this, their budgets have, I mean, those are small state budgets compared to our state, and theirs is already in the multiple billions, right? And Texas, I mean, to be equivalent of ours probably would be 10 or 15 billion if it was compared to theirs. And those voucher budgets are destroying their state budgets right now, and they don't know what to do. They're in a complete panic right now. The saving grace is that the speaker who won in the House, he's the one who is supported by all the anti-voucher Republicans, right? And he's supported by the anti-voucher Democrats. And and everyone else on his side are basically wary of Abbott and not really wanting to help Abbott out.
Well, he took a shot at him, so I wouldn't expect they would be best buddies.
No.
So is the guarantee that Abbott's been spoken about, that it's a guarantee deadlock, vouchers are going to happen, we're going to raid the Treasury and dump all this money in the folks' pockets?
We will see.
Need it. Is it going to happen?
So, I think, I've said from the beginning is we will see. Right here, because here's the problem. Here's the math that isn't mathing, right? And on the no voucher side, we have a very clear no voucher side. How big that no voucher side is? Is it 76? Is it under 76? Is it over 76? I don't know, but it's real close. The solid no, hell no, never vouchers. Our side is very clear. Right? And our side is unified. And the problem is, okay, so we may or may not have 76 to defeat it on a hell no. But what about the other side, the yes voucher side? Tell me who they are. Tell me what their coalition looks like. Are they a small voucher program? Yes. Are they a big voucher program? Yes. Are they anything and everything voucher program? Yes. Right? Because I think the anything and everything people may not agree with the very small voucher program people. And the very small voucher program people may say, hey, we're not for this big $7 billion thing. Right? So what's going to happen? Are they going to get together and say, and they're going to just be okay with each other? Are they going to be okay with what's being proposed now? I don't know. We'll have to see.
So when is
They
this
just
all?
released their bill yesterday.
So we got about 8 minutes or a little bit less. When
Yeah.
when is this all going to? I mean, obviously, we know the legislature doesn't start on day one and all of a sudden passes a bunch of bills. It's
Yeah.
kind of designed to be slow and process driven. When is this all going to get heated up, and when do you think people are going to stop being at least smiling at each other?
So I think a good way to tell is when Abbott makes his State of the State speech. And because the issue is in the legislature, no bills can be taken up before the 60th day, so like in March 14th or so,
Right.
unless it is in a emergency item.
Right.
And Abbott could designate vouchers as an emergency item, then it could move fast. Now, there's some political danger with that. That's, I think, pretty obvious. Is if you make vouchers an emergency situation, emergency issue, but you didn't make school funding emergency issue, right? Schools are going down, like are failing, like right now, right? And if that's not an emergency, why is vouchers an emergency? And what about all the
Well,
other?
because a bunch of billionaires that
What
give them a
about
lot
the
of money.
grid?
Say
What about-
that's
Yeah,
kind of the
so-
answer, isn't it?
And look, what Democrats need to do is prepare for 2026, right? That the 2025 is going to be the year of finding out, right? People effed around, and now it's time to find out. And
Well,
so,
let's put some more meat on the bone. When you say people are going to, effed around and found out, obviously we have a lot of folks who work really hard, maybe some that didn't do as hard because they expected this would be an easier election. That's just the reality. But is that what you're talking about?
no, I mean people who voted for Republicans, people who voted for Trump, people who didn't vote, people who abstained, people who did all these different things that caused the situation that we have now, right? And people think, and I think a lot of Americans vote or don't vote with the idea that there are no consequences in life, right? The consequences are what happens to other people, and that America will always be consequence free for our political decisions. And what people are going to find out is no, there are real consequences when you vote or don't vote a certain way. And when people find out, when people see their food prices skyrocket despite voting for the guy who says I'm going to bring food prices down, right? When housing becomes absolutely unaffordable and the number of middle class people who are homeless dramatically increases, you're going to see this, and people are going to find out. When schools start closing, when businesses start closing, people are going to find out.
Well,
Right.
it's happened in it's happened in HISD. We know that with school closings. All
Yeah.
right, we don't have a ton of time because I want to keep this on track. Most annoying thing you've seen in the legislature, or most annoying person that you've seen so far, just so far. It's not even a month yet. I didn't say this was going to be easy. This.
Well, I think the funniest was definitely sorry to be one of our Democrats. Richard Raymond voted for the Cook camp, for the Patrick Patsies, and everyone's like, why? The guy who says openly, I will crush Democrats. It's just like,
What's that? Isn't that like chickens voting for Colonel Sanders kind of?
yeah, basically. And we're like, everyone just looks at him over him like, okay. But I mean, this is what he does consistently, and we're like, and he's gonna get censured by his local community, by his local Democrats and stuff like that. And he may or may not flip parties. I don't know. It is just, it was a bit frustrating, but at the same time, everyone's just going, well, it fits.
So once he gets out, what does he get out of it? What's going to happen for him?
Nothing, just humiliation, just pure humiliation.
Well, and that's something, I mean, enforcing party discipline, because we've got two questions, and I think one of them kind of makes sense. There's kind of hey, let's get along because we got to work together versus, hey, let's get in people's faces and kind of, when you're doing really bad, sometimes even really evil stuff, calling them out. Best answer on that in 2 minutes.
I don't have. Okay, wait, try ask me again. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you got this choice. You got somebody, I'm going to crush Democrats, and you got one Democrat
Oh yeah.
saying, please,
Look,
I
I mean,
want to be
look.
crushed. I want to be crushed. That's a choice you sometimes have actually
Yeah.
every day in the legislature because you want to get along to get things done, reach across the aisle. But on the other hand, when somebody's going to crush you, not so much fun. So how do you do that balance? How does that work?
Well, look. So Democrats basically just ask ourselves, what is the best case scenario? How do we best represent our districts? How do we protect our community in the best way possible? And that's all people did. People made a smart, sensible decision, which is what we always want people to do, is like make the choice that ends up with the best result for you. As a Democrat in the last 12 years, I have swallowed a lot of bitter pills, in order to protect my community. And so have other Democrats around here. We've done it because it was necessary to protect our people. And we will continue to do so. And if you hear Democrats, oh, Democrats voted for this, give them a little grace, give them a little, go ask them. Because
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask
is,
them to come on and we're going to ask them face to face and
yeah,
let them explain it and give them an opportunity.
exactly, do it.
You're
Do
right.
it. Because what we do is complicated and what we do is nuanced, and we're trying to be smart and diligent about what we're doing. And sometimes it's hard to explain out in the public in just in 5-second bites. So if you just give them a little more grace, give them a little more time to say, hey, this is actually why we did this, and it makes a lot of sense if you look at the other evidence.
Well, when you're talking about doing these things in terms of kind of 60 days, what's your prediction? We get to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak. What's your prediction on whether or not vouchers are coming up really soon, lickety split, or wait till March and then the fighting starts?
I don't know. And because really it's up to it's up
This is confidential, not really, but let's just pretend it is.
I think I'm hesitant to say because Murphy's Law, whatever I say, the opposite happens, right? So,
well, what's better? What do you think's better?
Having a slow process is better, of course, right? Having this rammed through is worse. And here's why having a slow process is better, because it gives more time for the community to rally. What needs to happen again and again for all this stuff isn't us. It's people back home. It's people who are upset about these things, who want to fight about these things. Go and fight. Be in the street. You don't need to wait till they sign this bill to protest. Go and yell and scream and be in the street and march and protest about school funding and about vouchers now.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's one of the things that one of our core priorities that HCDP has this year, 2025, is legislative focus. We got our priorities we visited about at the beginning about minimum wage and Medicare for all, and the important things that affect our Harris County citizens' lives. But showing up at the Capitol in an organized manner, is that what you're talking about? Because that's our plan.
No. I'm saying back home.
Tell us about it.
Like back home in Houston, in Harris County, in your neighborhood, like what gets politicians worried is not that the crowd in Austin, but it's the crowd in their home district. When you're in front of their district office protesting, and you have a crowd of 300 people just in their district alone, that generates fear.
So even in these gerrymandered districts where you got a Republican,
yeah.
if he's got somebody out there or she's got somebody out there and there's a protest of 300 people,
including Democrats and Republicans, then you start panicking, right? And so all the Republicans who are soft, who are like small voucher Republicans, go find them.
Well, actually, we're going to ask you. We're going to ask you about that.
Start letting them know that we're going to be watching your vote on this.
All right. Well, I want to keep on track. There's really two things I want to give a flag for folks. And like I said, these are every Saturday. We're going to have you and other reps on, and we're going to look to you to make sure you're keeping us alert as we progress, not just on voucher, but these other bills. Flagging for folks, we have February 8th right here in Houston, a live and webinar forum for our TDP chair. The folks are going to be running the party statewide, as well as I'll do a pitch, as you're going to hear me pretty much every time you see me, and I'll say it again, Representative and all your compatriots. We're turning into a sustaining party platform because this is a year-round program. We need everybody supporting us monthly. That's what it really takes to have the organization to build what we need to build, not just for 26, but for every year thereafter.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave with this. Best hope, best fear. We've heard about folks who are focused on, what's the gun bill? I'm not really sure I can see a gun bill other than, open carry of machine guns in the state that they have left, but maybe they do. But what do you want to leave folks with today as we go forward? And we'll have an opportunity, I'm sure, to hear from you over the next several months. But what's the biggest thing you want to leave folks with that they may not hear in the media, that they're only going to hear right here from you, from the horse's mouth?
And I'm going to say this. Two things. One is don't give up hope, right? It's darkest before the dawn. But the second thing is, along with that, is I want everyone to realize there is no white knight riding to come save you. There is no big hero that you're waiting for. The hero you're looking for is you. The hero that you're looking for is your community. The way we fight this, the way we have always fought these things off, is us getting together and us uniting in our communities and fighting the oppression of fighting the oppressors, right? Americans are at the best when they're fighting Nazis.
That reminds me of what you were, and it went pretty viral where you're talking about the debt that Asian Americans have to the folks who stood up to segregation and did that. I mean, that seems like a very personal feeling, something you have deeply.
Yeah.
Explain that.
No, I basically, for the last couple of years, I've been trying to rally Asian community to fight against all these anti-Asian laws, anti-immigrant laws that are popping up, and basically laws that were passed against our people like 100 years ago that led up to the Japanese internment and all those things, and said we're having to fight them. And I'm trying to tell people we have to take a lesson from the Black community. If you want to know how to fight for your rights, look at them. Look at what they've done. And I think for the Asian community, there's a lot of racism in our community, and people will say like, well, there's nothing we want from the Black community, right? There's something we need from them. And I say like, that's wrong. You actually have a lot to learn from them. It is vital for you to understand how you got to the place you are. And a lot of Asian Americans came in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. They came to America in a time when everything was fine, everything was great. Their doors have already been opened, the barriers have been knocked down. And they feel like we got here alone. We did this all ourselves. And my answer to them is no, you did not. You certainly did not. All those roadblocks, all those barriers, all those doors were kicked open by other people, right? You would not even be allowed in this country but for the civil rights movement, but for African Americans, Jewish people, Latinos who fought and kicked and screamed and were beaten and who were killed and who were lynched and who were burned. If they had not done those things, the Chinese Exclusion Act would not have been repealed in 1965. The Chinese Exclusion Act from 1882 lasted to 1965. That was not repealed until after the Civil Rights era. Right?
Doesn't sound like
you would not even be allowed in this country but for their actions. But I need the Asian community to know that and to remember that and to respect that, because I need them to fight. I need them to fight like African Americans did during the Civil Rights era. I need them to take charge of their own communities and be responsible for their own rights. And a lesson that no right is ever given. No privilege is ever just handed to you. These things are fought for. These things are taken. Our rights are not given to us. We demand them, and we will snatch them from our oppressors. And that's what we need to learn.
Thank you, Representative Wu, for being here. Thank you for all you're doing as chair, as just for Harris County. We're going to have you back on. We're going to need your help to make sure that our folks in Harris County not just are hearing what they see in the paper or the radio, but understand what's going on behind the scenes. Thank you for that, and we'll see you next time.